Hey Brent, can you hear me? Okay, say something, see if I can hear you.
Hello?
Yep, there he is. Nope, I got it. I think, believe it or not, I need to turn the volume up, so that probably would have been helpful. Okay, hey, do we have you, Brent? You there?
Yes.
And you can hear us too, so, okay, we're good. We're going to hear us get pulling in. I didn't want to really know everybody's speaking. So where's that at? Right there? Now everybody will see it. Okay, that's what I'm doing. All right. I think we're ready. I can present now. Hey Brent, can you see the? Y'all want to come in? Can you see the?
Yes.
The agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure you can see that, and we can still see you. So I think we're good. All right, we're good. I think we're set. All right, thanks, Sandra.
All right, 7 o'clock, I'll call the meeting to order. Got a copy of the agenda in front of you. Mr. Hall, do you have any changes for the agenda?
No changes to the agenda.
I have one on the consent agenda items. We need to pull check number 30425 and make a separate motion on that.
And then before we approve those, did you want me to address a
Yeah,
couple of
you
the
would,
expenditures?
yeah.
Sure, not a
Just so
problem.
everybody knows.
Yeah,
what's
this
going on
was kind of an unusual month when it came to expenditures because we had COVID funds that we're trying to expend by a certain amount of time. And so we just need to have the rationale as far as what we used them for. It was COVID related. There are about 3 of them that Tony mentioned I might share on. Check number 30375, which is on page 5 of the register. It's 30375, page 5 of the register. That's US Cellular, and those are our monthly subscription costs for the use of the hotspots. This was included in the application for the Howell County CARES funds. And so those are dollars that we're using right now, and so they're paid for. They're not reimbursed because we already received the money up front, but they are paid for by the CARES money that we received from Howell County.
How long will that sustain? Do you
Well,
remember?
it's a 12-month subscription.
Okay.
But Congress, when they came back together in December, they changed the date that you had to have it expended by. It was December 30th. Now they moved it to a year from now. So you have until a year from now to spend those dollars, even though we've already spent them. All right. We're going to continue to evaluate that. I visited with Andrew earlier today. That right now we have roughly about 47 kids that are on distance learning. And we have 150 hotspots. All right. We still have to have at least 6 months of the subscription. All right. After 6 months, they'll let us reevaluate. If we decide we don't need them at that time, then we can cut down on the number of hotspots.
That's paying for all 150.
Yes. But if we back off on that in 6 months, then we might recoup about 75 of them. And those are dollars then that can go back into the pot and kind of be utilized someplace else, because we have until a year from now to spend those dollars. So that's what the hotspots are for. Another one that I want to bring your attention on, it'd be check number 30383 on page 6 to Wagner True Value. We had $19,953.30 in automatic flush valves. Those also were part of the CARES application for Howell County. The objective of that being is to change all of our automatic flush valves from the kind of you have to touch with your hands to handles, right? For obvious sanitary reasons and everything else. So that will help us upgrade all of our toilets to automatic flush valves.
That was also part of our energy audit.
Correct. That's one of the things that they shared would be a good thing as far as energy efficiency.
So that's a
Or better utilization of water. Exactly. And then the other one is on page. It is check number 30443, and that would be we have a van, a special ed van from CARES. It's from the CARES CRF money from Central States Bus Sales. It's a $30,000 van. Rationale is we just recently had a child requiring handicap accessible van move into our district, and we're transporting that child. The rationale on this for COVID is right now, some of our most, from a health standpoint, our most delicate kids, most fragile kids, are all being transported in one Suburban to and from school. This will allow us to maybe use 2 vehicles and provide for more social distancing. plus the fact that it feels the need that we have a handicap child, and we need to have, it's much better than loading them in a Suburban or a van and throwing the wheelchair in the back. This will be much more meeting needs, especially allow us to transport our special needs kids more safely.
We have drivers.
Yes, we do. Yeah. So, are there any other questions?
Thank you.
No problem.
Tony, could you give me the check number that you want to
Yes.
pull out?
30425. It's a scholarship for my son. Are there any other questions on the consent agenda items? If not, I'd receive a motion to approve as presented minus check 30425.
So moved.
By Dean, and a second.
Second.
By Adam. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Very well.
Can you, not to disrupt the meeting,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
I'm kind of doing double duty here.
I'm
Who made-
good.
Oh, are you doing
Yeah,
that?
no,
Okay. You
I
got
got
the
you.
motion in the second and all that? Okay.
On it.
I'll just let you take care of that.
Thanks. How does that pay?
I'm just saying, you know.
All right. I would receive a motion to approve check number 30425.
So moved.
By Dean, and a second.
Second.
By Farrell. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And I abstain. Very good. Administrative reports. Marty, you first in line.
All right, per usual. December was good in the high school. You have the numbers that you can look over, no real major changes there. Couple of notes of interest. We had 7 teachers with perfect attendance during the entire semester. So even when you hear all of the craziness of COVID, we had 7 strong teachers that battled through and did not need a sub in the first semester. So we also appreciated them and gave them a soda for their hard work. Basketball teams both doing really well. Girls playing in a big game right now over at the gym, but the boys took consolation in the blue and gold. First time the boys team has played 4 games in the blue and gold since the 2010-2011 team. So it's been a decade since we've played 4 games in that. So did a really nice job, and the girls won 3rd place in the Mountain Grove Holiday Tournament. That's a 16-team tournament as well. So both boys and girls basketball are doing great. We're getting started with peer coaching again. A lot of things that we have been working on with our staff kind of got pushed to the side while we dealt with distance learning and COVID. That's starting to come back now. Peer coaching is one of those where our teachers in their departments rotate and they take time to just step into another teacher's classroom and see what's going on. And the elementary and even to the middle school to some degree, those departments work really well as a team. In the high school, it's more isolated, more isolation, so it's really good for our staff to get in and see what everybody else is doing and take some notes. So we're going to look to get back to more professional development, more student engagement, and look at some things we're doing academically in this second semester, and not just focusing so much on how do we survive and what do we need to do to make it to Christmas. Also wanted to mention our discipline referrals. That's not something I bring up a lot, but we have a really good climate in the high school, and our teachers and Mr. Schmidt do a really good job with our discipline and management and just some numbers. Typically at the end of the first semester, we kind of pull those numbers and compare last year to this year. We had 266 referrals in the first semester, but that's down from 333 last year. And you think 266, that's a really big number of kids getting in trouble. 203 of those 266 referrals are tardies. So take that a little bit. And it was 216 last year tardies, and I've been doing this for a while. We've tried all different kinds of things. Kids are going to be late to class. That's just part of it. And while that seems like a high number, it's something we continually work on, but those account for a large portion of the referrals. The things we do worry about, the fighting, the assault, horseplay, threats, those big ticket items. We've had 7 referrals for those this year. We had 14 last year. So it's really been a good semester as far as climate and culture goes at the high school. And then upcoming events, January is, other than basketball, not a whole lot on the calendar, so we'll be working on all those things I mentioned of getting back to academics and helping our teachers prepare for, we're really looking towards next year already too, and getting ready for what's going to be our focus next year.
Good to know. Any questions for Marty? Thank you. Leah?
Okay, well, you have my report in front of you. My attendance isn't as great as I would like for it to be. I like for it to stay up in the 94, 95 range, and we were a little lower than that for December. January numbers, my 5th and 6th grade are strong, 7th and 8th grade are lower than we would like to be, and we're looking at maybe doing some attendance incentives, just to try to get those numbers up. My distance learning numbers have decreased considerably. I have 8 students who need to come back due to grades first semester, and I have 5 of those that are still out there as far as I don't know if they're coming back or if they're seated. I've made multiple contacts, and if they're coming back or if they're going to go homeschool, and I've made multiple contacts, and we're still in the air on that, on some of those. I only have 10 students on quarantine right now, so that's not a bad number, and very few positive cases, and they've all been outside of school for the last couple of months, so that's a good thing. December events, we had a virtual band concert, and I don't know if any of you caught that, but we were lucky enough, the administrators, of course, since we work here, we were lucky enough to get to go down there, and it was so good. I love seeing the difference between those 6th graders, especially between when they go in that first day and when they get to Christmas. You know, it was just really, Mr. Cochran and Mr. Good did a good job with that. We had a drop everything in kind day on December 21st, and every teacher in the building, unless they were giving a final or something like that, which they of course can, and some of them do, had an activity that was part of our Character Strong program. Some of them did some activities outside of the classroom. Some of them just did some things like, I went in Mrs. Miller's room and she was playing kindness bingo, and it was a bingo game, different things, ways you can be kind at home or at school, and just an awareness of how we can serve others and be kind to others. And it was a big hit. We had just a lot of really good activities. And I credit Mrs. Cottengim on that. She was the lead on that. And in December, we also took our second iReady assessments, and I'll go over those here in a minute to tell you kind of how we're doing in reading and math. We had a Character Strong Student of the Month for December, Jackson Pointer. Of course, Terry Newton gives a gift card for that every month, and we appreciate that. Our focus for teachers this month is observations. Last January, I asked them all to get in a classroom and do an observation and just send me a short email, and they all did that. This January, every Wednesday is open door, Teach with Your Door Open on Wednesdays. It's an old building, and we have squeaky doors in a lot of our classrooms, and when you go up and knock on somebody's door and they have to stop class and open the door for you, and it's kind of disruptive. So on Wednesdays, we're all going to leave our doors either open or at least cracked so that anybody from any floor can come and observe in your classroom, and then they send me a little email. Encouraging them to get off their floors. It's easy to walk across the hall to that classroom that you see in here every day, but we're really encouraging them to go upstairs or downstairs and go to another grade level and go to PE and see how different classes are running. So that's what we're doing on Wednesdays, and this is in preparation for the peer coaching training and implementation. We're doing the training on January 21st, and we're going to start the peer coaching initiative that the high school has been doing full speed in our building toward this end of this semester. So that's kind of what we were doing there. I think, did Mandy give you my iReady reports?
Yeah, they have it in front of them.
Okay. So looking at this year's scores, between our August scores and our December scores, and looking at what we did last year during the same time period. I did a written analysis of that. So from our August assessment to our December assessment, we did have a, well, I'm trying to read and talk at the same time. We didn't show as much gains as much in gains between our August and our December assessments. I'm not too worried about reading. Our reading assessments are not significantly different, where they started out the year and where they are now. We didn't make as much of a gain as I would have liked for us to, but we had, at one point, we had several, I mean, we had a good chunk of our students out on quarantine. We had a lot of teachers who were out of the classroom also because of quarantine. We had distance learners who were coming and going. First semester was disruptive as far as trying to have some consistent teaching in there. So I'm not too concerned about reading. I think we will get those gains back. We mostly work in our building. It's different from the elementary. In the elementary, they're learning to read. In our building, we work primarily on vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency, because they come in with the phonemic skills, basically. If they don't, we address that in RTI. I am more concerned about math. If you look at the math, we improved about the same amount as we did last year between August and December, but we started out lower. So I am very concerned about what we lost fourth quarter last year. Math skills are very different from reading skills. You don't generally lose your reading skills by not using them. Your math skills you do. How many of you remember how to do your high school geometry that you passed with an A at the time? You know, how many of you could sit down and do those upper level math skills?
I'm
but
saying
you
that's
don't
what you
use them?
speak, Carla.
You're a little sketchy on that, aren't you? But when you don't use them, you do lose them, and they missed a whole quarter of skills. So the teachers have spent a lot of time during this first semester trying to go back and figure out where they were, catch them up on where they needed to be, and also teach what we usually teach first semester. So I'm much more concerned about math than I am reading, although I'm not unconcerned with reading. So does anybody have any questions on those?
Where do you foresee us being at the end of the year with math? About where we need to be, or we're still gonna always be running a quarter behind?
I don't know that we'll be running a quarter behind. I think the teachers are doing a good job. Coach Wagner during the summer had a really good workshop on, we're not remediating students, we're actually, what was the word he used? We're accelerating our instruction. We're not remediating, we're accelerating. So we're really focused on what are those really important skills they need to have and getting those in. I don't think we will be where we would have been otherwise. I also don't think we'll be a whole quarter behind. I think we'll start seeing some of that made up, but I don't know, it's gonna just be something we'll have to watch, and we will continue to watch it. We look at this data, the teachers will have it in front of them, we share it with parents, my RTI teachers really focus on it with those kids who need that extra help, and I guess we'll keep doing what we're doing and see if it's effective, so.
Is the iReady test itself at the student level giving your teachers the information that they need to identify the holes?
Yes, and it's a good test. It's a very good test. I was in a classroom the other day, and Mrs. Leah was talking about the iReady test and, you know, where those students, where they needed to focus and as a group, so. You know, they use
That was the way that was how it sold to us, right? It
Well,
was gonna do that for us.
It's being used like that in my
Good.
building, so that's,
Good.
it's a good tool.
Have you got any metrics on the Characters Drum referrals, like Marty shared with us?
Well, I wish I had known he was going
Sorry,
to.
it was-
Thank you for that,
I'm
Dr.
sorry,
Spence.
I'm sorry.
No, but I can have that for you next month. I would love to
I
have
was
that for
just
you.
curious if you had
Because
that data.
I was talking to Mrs. Cottingham the other day, how I felt that our behavior intervention program, which is our version of ISS, is not having as many students in it this year, and I really feel like we have had fewer fights and things like that, but I don't have the report, but I will have that for you next month.
Great.
Any other questions? Thank you. Bobby?
Yeah, you have my enrollment data, nothing really. Our enrollment was up 8 kids overall, and the breakdown at the bottom's there for you. I have 13 distance learners, 1 virtual, and it says 6 quarantine, but as of this afternoon, I was down to 5 quarantine. I have 3 pre-K, so I guess 8 total, but 1 staff member at the moment, and so far, so good, knock on wood. We are looking toward map testing. Mr. Brower and I are looking at dates and for that and pre-K and kindergarten screening as well. And our focus has been, we adopted a new reading series last year, curriculum, which also had writing involved. And I think these guys will tell you no curriculum is perfect. You always have to tweak it to fit your building or see what is strong about it or what is not so strong. And writing we found to be very difficult for our kids in our curriculum. So beginning second quarter, after all the distance learning stuff, we have implemented what is called Foursquare writing. And it's just a strategy where teachers teach kids to use this Foursquare to start any writing project, any genre, anything like that. And Mrs. Newberry, our instructional coach, during second quarter, she implemented that with second, third, and fourth grade. And during the second semester, she's going to implement that with K1. And so that's kind of been our focus this year, to improve our writing consistency building wide. And hopefully in a year or two, once those kids K1 get that, when they get to second, third grade, they'll just be getting out those stories and be good writers. So I brought some iReady data for you as well. Take a paper clip copy and pass the rest around. What I have is the comparisons for reading. The one right on top is reading. The pyramid, the dark pyramid, will be our diagnostic we took in December. The faded out one is our baseline that we took in September. And if you see between them, it will tell you our percentages that we moved. And obviously, we want as much green as possible, and we want the red, to become smaller. And as far as tier 3, the red means 2 grade levels below, yellow is 1 grade level below, and green is on grade level. With the caveat being that green, this test is adaptive. So any student that scores in the green, that means they've tested out basically at their grade level. So if they're in the green, that means if they're in third grade, they're in third grade in April or May because they've tested out. Yellow really is 1 grade level below, but it just means they're on grade level for where they're at. So we're in halfway through the year, they're on grade level for third grade if they're yellow. And we hope to move them to green before the end of the year. So as you see, tier 3 students, 2 grade levels below, we went from 28% in September to 18%. So that number moved in the right direction. Yellow, it could go up or down just depending on how many kids we move. And it went from 47 to 44. And tier 1 on grade level went from 25% to 38%. So we're trending in the right direction. And down below, it breaks down each grade level for both. Again, the dark bar line is the December diagnostic, and the faded is the baseline that we took in September. And grades 1 through 4 are on there. Kindergarten is absent because they just took the first diagnostic in December, so they had no comparison. Nothing to compare it to. Next in your packet is the same thing. Any questions on reading?
So just one question.
Yeah.
And my understanding was not that this test started the year off assuming you completed the grade, which is what you just said, right?
Well,
You said if they're in the yellow, then they're on target, and that they're tested out.
no,
right.
the green would be tested out.
But that's not my understanding. Is that correct? So they're in the green, they're already finished with the year. So if they're in the green in August, they're actually a year ahead.
Yeah,
Is
there's,
that correct?
that's my understanding.
It depends on which report you're using. There are
There's
two
a-
different
yeah.
reports. There's a report that shows, here's the standard where they should be at the end of the year, and it will give you the report
That's-
based on where they are towards that.
Yeah.
And then the other report is, here's where they should be at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and it measures according to
Yeah,
that.
and
So-
I just use standard because that's my end goal, is where I want them to be.
And I
So,
use the other one, I use the one that, so it just depends on which report.
Yeah,
you're
you
running.
manipulate data, I guess.
But then based on that, Mr. C, just so I understand,
Yeah.
grade one mid-year, so when it says 31% are in tier one in math, right, or in reading, I'm sorry, in reading, then those 31% are all at grade level based on where they should be by the end of this year?
Yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah, because you can look at an individual student report and it'll say, test it out, test it out, test it out. Or if they're grade one and they're actually a grade two student, it'll say grade one. It puts them right where they are, so,
Right, so, I'm gonna ask you again.
yeah.
So tier one baseline tells me that everyone in the green is a year ahead.
They're,
Because if the baseline is
Basically-
taken in August and it's based on the end of the year, then they've
Basically-
already completed the year that they're in.
they've tested
Is that,
out.
Yeah,
is that the understanding?
They're reading at that level, right?
Yeah, they're
reading
at
above.
that level.
Yeah, or
so.
Which also tells us that even though they had no formal instruction for 6 months,
So,
they still came in where they should be at
yeah,
the end of the
and,
year.
I mean, that was 6% of our kids, so,
Well, that's math.
well,
25% reading.
25% reading.
25% of our kids came into August
On
reading
grade
at
level.
May level.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bobby, I got a question.
Sure.
Are you done?
Now I'm done.
Okay.
Just trying to wrap my brains around the different numbers.
I just curious, I'm just noticing on the red there, it tends to grow as the grades progress higher. Is there
Yeah.
any thoughts on that? or-
Just more rigorous curriculum. And I would say if there's a gap, you know, at a lower grade level, I mean, it's hard to,
It follows you.
yeah, it's hard to close that gap, and then as that curriculum gets tougher, it's really, really hard to keep that closed. All right, yeah, so math, 6% of our kids would be considered a year ahead or on grade level, and same numbers there. Like Dr. Spencer, I was a little more concerned with math, and I got another report I'm going to show you that I think will tell you why, but we went from 30%, 2 grade levels below, down to 12. See the yellow increased there, but that's because we're moving kids from tier 3 down to tier 2. And then on grade level went from the 6% to 19%. So trending in the right direction. And you also have the individual grade level reports down below that. Any math questions?
What are the domains, the 4 domains there?
Yeah, the 4 domains on the right are just the main number and operation, algebra and algebraic thinking, measurement and data, and geometry.
Thank you.
And when you get a student report, you will get each of those areas
Okay.
where they scored weak. And iReady automatically groups kids for a teacher. I mean, it's really user-friendly. So they get that report and they'll have a group. These 4 kids are weak in algebraic thinking or whatever. So that way that teacher can focus skills specific to those students. And in elementary, the last couple of years, we've done small groups for reading, which has been done for years, but we've also started teaching math in small groups as well. And that way we can group those kids and really be specific with the skills they're weak in. So
Do you think your teachers have the time to really analyze that data and then act on it?
Not enough. I mean, we try to have 3 data days a year where they get together as a group and break it down. But if they're only doing it 3 times a year, that's probably
Probably not as effective as it could have been.
not as effective as it could be. All right, the next report, I was just curious with the fourth quarter absence, what kids lost from one year to the next. So you might want to just tear it apart, that way you can compare. So if you look at the highlighted at the top, one year will say 1920, and then the other year will say 2021. And you can put them side by side and compare. And if you just want to compare us as a building, in 1920, we were at 34% that would have tested out or been above, already completed the grade level. This year, that's down to 25%. And then tier 3 went from 17% up to 27% in reading. So there's definitely some losses. If you want to get more specific and compare cohorts, you could put the grade levels side by side. And of course, on 1920, those 4th graders are now 5th graders. So if you just slide up 2021 to where 3rd grade's matched with 4th grade, you could see those numbers as well. So that's our baseline for both years. Something that jumps out, 3rd grade went from 40% down to 20%. That would be the same cohort of kids. And then 2nd grade in 1920 is our 3rd grade this year. They went from 39% to 47%. They actually went up. But you could do the same thing for math. And if you look at math, we did lose more in math than we did reading. So just the eye test, you can see there's not much green on 2021 as compared to 1920. Any questions for math? So we are trending in the right direction. Personally, when I was in the classroom, my goal as a math teacher was 80% of my kids get it. If they didn't, I retaught it. That's my goal as a principal, 80%. Is that realistic? I mean, you look on state map data and, you know, the averages are 60% proficient. So I'm always going to aim high though. So. Questions?
Thanks, Bobby.
Yep.
Marlena?
Correct. Special Ed world has been busy as normal. The things that we've been focusing on over the last month, we've had some trainings on writing quality IEPs, and we have a RPDC training that I've asked several of our special ed teachers to participate in. It's a 2-day, couple-hour training that'll be held virtually. Been working with the middle school teachers and interventionists on what an intervention is and how to document those and things that are required for making special ed referrals. With that, I also give a little extra 2 cents on going through some of the disability areas and what it takes to qualify in those areas. I have done that with the elementary buildings as well, and it seems to be working very well on actually identifying students who need special ed referrals and those who just need some intervention to make up skill gaps, or kids we're actually working on identifying as students with disabilities. This year I think is pretty unique because there are a lot of skill gaps, but I think that's largely related to us missing the majority of fourth quarter last year. And then we've also been working on contacting parents who we do not have consent from for our kiddos who have related services such as speech and language or occupational therapy and physical therapy. Those students who are Medicaid eligible, we are able to recoup some reimbursement from Medicaid for the services that we provide if we have consent and a script from the physician. So we've been making contact with those families and getting the documents that we need to be able to get a little bit of money back. It doesn't amount to a lot, but every little bit helps when you're spending sometimes our related services bills to OMC and the places we contract with are sometimes $12,000 to $14,000 a month. So it's helpful to get back what we can on those. So that's what we've been working on, and lots of evaluations and reevaluations. Transfer students here and there. We've had a few this week, which typically happens after the first of the year. So we've been working on for special ed. And thanks for the van. We're crazy excited to be able to have that for our kiddo that's in a wheelchair. I think that it'll help provide for his safety a little bit better and making sure that his needs are met here at school.
Any other questions? Good, thank you.
I've got, if I could add just a few more things as part of the administrative conversation here. I have in front of you, there should be two other documents. You have a number of documents in front of you, see what I'm referring to. But the first one I'd like to bring your attention to is a spreadsheet that says Distance Learning Student Summary Sheet. And then also another spreadsheet, it doesn't have a title to it, but it has elementary, middle school, high school. And what I have here, first of all, I'd like to talk about the Distance Learning Student Summary Sheet. Hey, Coach Colley, are you there?
He shook his head, yes.
Oh, did he? Okay. Hey, I emailed these documents to you earlier this afternoon, so you should have them in an email. I went ahead and shared them as well, so you can look at the screen too, so. All right? Okay. But anyway, what I've been asked by a board member to share information, since we're transitioning from the first semester to the second semester, the number of students that we have who are currently distance learning. And when we say distance learning, there's multiple areas that you can distance learn from. Now, one of the issues one of the things that the principals have been working through is trying to determine adequate progress from our students who are distance learning to determine if that model, that instruction delivery system is working for them. If it is not working for them, then they were basically given the option of either come back to seated instruction or homeschool. Okay, and that's kind of where we are right now. This is what we currently have as of the beginning of the second semester by grade level. The number of students that we have that are receiving either Ed Minimum or Acellus, that's our distance learning program, district-wide is 47. And you can see by grade level where most of those are. And they're pretty much, I mean, they're evenly divided among our three schools. I think we have 5, 6, 10, 12 at the elementary school. At the middle school, we have 11, 15, 18. And then at the high school, we have 10, 14, 16. So they're pretty well evenly distributed across all three grade levels. Those are students who are still currently receiving distance learning this second semester. All right. MOCAP, we have 2 that are receiving MOCAP. Those are from outside third-party providers. And we have 1 at the 4th grade level and 1 at the 10th grade level. And then we have 5 that are doing launch. 1 at the 9th grade level, 2 at the 11th grade level, 1 at the 12th grade level. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. 1 at the 6th grade level, 2 at the 8th grade level, 1 at the 9th grade level, and 1 at the 11th grade level. We have had conversations with a number of students who were not showing adequate progress through distance learning. Of those students, district-wide, 8 of them have returned to seated instruction. All right, and they've made the decision, since distance learning was no longer an option for them, they made the decision to come back to seated instruction beginning the second semester. And then we have 11 that we have contacted who, again, are not making progress on distance learning, and those 11 have decided to go ahead and homeschool this semester. Now, we are still waiting on results. Dr. Spencer might clarify if this has changed since I put this data together on Friday, but we still have 1 6th grader who's still making that decision, and 5 8th graders who are still making the decision between.
One of my 8th graders is coming back tomorrow, so that
Okay.
parent did decide to send
So
it.
now it's 4 8th graders still deciding, and you have up to 3 now 8th graders who are returning to seated instruction, correct? So that gives you a general idea where we are now. Now, just to let you know, I believe we started out the year in August with 125 to 130 distance learners across the district. As you already recall, at the end of the first 9 weeks, we transitioned from Canvas to Edmentum and Acellus, all right? It is interesting to note that we're down from 125 to 47 that are still doing the distance learning. So those students are coming back to school, and I think parents are understanding the importance of seated instruction and how that is a more viable delivery option than distance learning. So, and that being said, we have some students who are being successful in distance learning. It just really depends on the student. So, any questions on that data at all?
So the return to seated and the decided to homeschool is a fourth quarter number, sort of?
It's a fourth quarter number.
I'm sorry, second quarter.
Okay. I know, right? No, yeah. Yes, it is. That was the decision that was made at the end of the semester.
After the.
Correct. When the grades went out, it's like, okay, here we are.
Right.
So yeah, and I know, and Dr. Spencer, I mean, so the principals have different timelines. You're still waiting on responses. You're giving them until Thursday, I believe.
So district policy is you get 8 unexcused absences per semester. So if you did not send your student back to school, they discontinued on distance learning, and you haven't signed a homeschool form, you hit those 8 days on Wednesday. So then on Thursday, you're over on your absences, and that puts you in educational neglect. So I sent letters out, I've contacted using emails, I will continue following up with phone calls, but, you know, we don't want them going over on their absences before we can even start the semester, so.
Marty,
Yeah.
you probably can't answer this question, I'm gonna ask it anyhow. I see in this last quarter, you lost 8 kids to homeschooling, decided to stay home with. I'm not, not sure your fault, I just don't like that number.
No, I don't
I've got a
either.
good idea of what's probably happening.
Yeah.
Do you know how many are on that list from the first quarter?
Oh, I mean, they were,
Did you have anybody in the first quarter that decided they were gonna go
what we did was
homeschool?
we kept, I mean, if you were failing first quarter, we kept you in there for the second quarter, and we took the semester grade.
Okay,
And if
so-
you were making 3 or more Fs at semester, then you were given
Okay,
that option.
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
In my building, it was more than 1 F. You could fail one class, one core class, and retake that through Edmentum without coming back to seated or going homeschool. But if you failed 2 or more core classes, because we don't have the credit recovery system in
Right.
place that the high school has. So anybody who failed 2 or more classes, but
Those
most of
kids are
mine.
really set up for a hardship down the road.
Most of mine failed all 4 core classes. I had one who failed 3 and one who failed 1, but the rest of them who need to come back have failed all 4 for
Okay,
the semester.
thank you.
Okay, now the other document I'd like to draw your attention to is the one that has the elementary, middle school, and high school grids. And I was requested on Friday, and I think it's a good piece of data, to maybe do a grade distribution for all of our distance learners since school started. And so these are all based on the grades for all of our distance learning since we started in August, and the cumulative grade, the final grade that was given to the students at the end of the semester. So you can kind of see where we are in terms of, for instance, at the elementary school, this is all students, there were 25, there were a total of 25 A's for all classes, for all students, 6 in English, 9 in math, 5 in science, 5 in social studies. But then as you kind of go across, elementary didn't do bad. I mean, you had 2 B's for all students, 2 in English, and so they were pretty good. But we noticed then, as you kind of moved up in grade level, and especially as the content became more difficult, then you started seeing a larger number of failing grades. And you can see at the middle school, we have all students, there were 24 A's, and these are all the classes they've taken. 24 A's, 41 B's, 13 C's, 7 D's, and 65 F's. Now, let me ask you, and Mr. Wagner pulled this data, is it just the classes you have listed, the cores and PE? Or did you include all the
No, this
electives?
is,
This is
the
everything.
29 and 150 that you see at the bottom of the grid there represents all grades. I just featured the ones that had a significant amount of grades featured. So if it was a subject area that only had, 1 or 2 students in it, I didn't include that in the grid. So if the.
But it's in the overall number.
It's in the overall number, yes.
So on the 29 total students at the middle school who were doing distance learning, there were a total of 150 grades given. And now that 150 grades, and we had a total of You would have to add up all these Fs to determine that, correct? Because they're
No,
not.
there's
duplicated.
65 Fs.
Okay, so they are duplicated. So, okay, so they had 65 Fs out of 150 grades, give it
43%.
43%. All right, so that kind of gives you the grade
Which is the same
distribution.
percent that we had on A and B. It's the same number of As and Bs total
Correct.
is what we had. with
Correct, and it had the same number of Fs.
It appears that the kids either did pretty good or
They
didn't do
It
good
was
at all.
either up or down, it was sink or
Right.
swim. They did well or they didn't do well at all. And then high school is where we started seeing some really pronounced changes. We had a total of, in all subjects, we had 31 As, 45 Bs, 27 Cs, 20 Ds, and 141 Fs. And then we had 5 that had passing grade.
If I could insert something there, if you're all right.
Sure,
with that, Mr.
absolutely.
Hall. On those numbers, I just did some math for you, and I know that the students I talked to this week, 13 of our students received all Fs on their report card. So in the high school, that's 8 Fs. So one student, 13 times 8, we've got 104. 104 of those 141 Fs come from 13 students that did
Would it be-
very little to
Yeah, would it be
nothing.
fair to say, Dr. Spence, that that had to do more with inactivity than? it
Oh,
did with
absolutely.
grades?
Yes, there wasn't an attempt.
Right.
It's not that they weren't getting it, they didn't do
You
it.
said 13 students, so a third of them.
Yeah.
And probably all of those are on that list of 8 students.
Yes. Yes.
Any other questions on that? I thought it's important for the board to see this data, so you can see what's happening with distance learning. You know, there's no argument to the fact that the most effective form of instruction is face-to-face. And, I mean, you can't replace that with distance learning, you just can't. For a lot of reasons, and I know Dr. Spence mentioned inactivity. I think a lot of the Fs that we saw were due to inactivity, whether it's middle school or high school. The reality of it is that, you know, without the structure there and the day-to-day contact, it's difficult to make sure that you have the daily rigor that you need. So, any questions about that information at all?
It's good information.
The practical arts, is that reading? Excuse me? Practical arts?
No, that's like shop, business, ag, facts, those are practical arts. And I would also add that I was just at an SCA principals meeting, and I've talked to people in West Plains. This is certainly not a Willow problem. This is a problem throughout the area.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
So,
You don't-
I assume you
You
guys
didn't
do
get
that.
any irrigated, did you?
Just throwing that out there. That it was funny when all this started, we were all gung-ho about, we gotta change education, we gotta do something different. And through this, we found that, you know what, actually what we were doing was pretty good.
Right.
So,
Any other questions about this, dude? At all? Okay.
All right, you know, just roll on into your COVID
Yes,
update.
absolutely. And I went ahead and put it up on the screen, but you also have a copy of this as well. I wanted to give the board an update on where we are with all things COVID related, you know, and it continues to change rapidly. But I did want to give you an idea, snapshot of our current numbers district-wide. I know each of the administrators shared with you how many kids were out and staff were out, either on close contact and/or positive cases. But when you look at it district-wide, this is as of today, I just looked at the spreadsheet today, we have 6 out of 397 kids are out. These are quarantined, these are close contacts, all right? And I would say since we came back last Monday, most of the close contacts are close contacts that occurred outside of school, all right? They kind of followed up from the holidays. There was a positive case of close contacts, and so that led to the quarantine at school, but they didn't occur at school. Middle school has 9 out of 382, about 2.4%. Elementary school, 8 are out on quarantine. So as a district, we have 23 kids out on quarantine, roughly about 1.78%. That's a very small number, and I'm very, very pleased with that number compared to where we were at the beginning of the year.
Gosh, that would put us at 95% attendance, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Well, now, that's operating on the assumption that all the other kids that should be there are there. So, we still got that, so. Total staff on quarantine, actually I have 3 district-wide, actually I had 2 at the elementary school, and one district personnel, again, close contact. Total current active positive cases, in the high school we have 1, in the middle school we have 2. And those are, again, they occurred outside of school. All right, they didn't occur in school, they didn't get the positive case at the school. So the total positive student, and we have no staff active positive cases right now. So the total positive student cases for the school year is 56. So since we started school in August, we've had 56 positive student cases out of 1,287 students. We've had 40 positive staff cases out of 234 staff members. So kind of give you an idea what the percent is on that. So we're not seeing a large number of positive cases to this point. I mean, that's going back, what, 5 months, 6 months, so. Antigen testing for staff, as you're aware, we did acquire some antigen tests, the rapid test, that our nurse's office, they are using it, and they're using it with discretion. They're primarily making it available at this point in time for staff who are symptomatic. Thus far, since we received those tests back in December, our school nurses have given 10 total tests to 10 staff members, 6 middle school staff members and 4 elementary staff members. And out of that number of those 10, 8 came back negative and 2 came back positive. And so we feel pretty good about that percentage anyway. But it's nice to know that we have that tool available to provide support for our staff members so they have a general idea if they are symptomatic, if they have contracted the coronavirus. So, change in contact tracing. The CDC actually changed these guidelines about a month ago. It took a while for Howell County Health Department to get on board with this one. Basically, they changed it from 14 days for a close contact to 10 days. And CDC had done that a while back. Howell County didn't want to do it right away because they were seeing a spike in cases right when it came out, so they held off on it. And since that time, Howell County is now following the 10-day quarantine rule with the possibility of a staff member or student coming back after day 7 if they have tested negative. All right? And so we still have that possibility of folks coming back early if they choose to do so. Now, we're not requiring staff to take a test at day 7. That's a personal decision. We're taking the tack that that's up to each individual person to decide if that's what's in their best interest.
What's the turnaround time on the testing now?
15 minutes.
Is it?
Mhm.
So they could come back and take one of our antigen tests?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, they can take the antigen
Good,
test.
absolutely. They will contact our school nurse, say, hey, it's been 7 days. We checked with the state health departments who are local. They said the antigen test we have will work for that.
Right.
And so they can contact our school nurse at day 7 and say, hey, I want to take a test, and I'm not showing symptoms. They can come in. If they're negative, they can go back to work right away.
Okay, we didn't originally know that the antigen test was
That's correct.
qualified for that.
They've eased off. You can use that to get people back early.
Okay.
And not just staff, you can use it for students too.
Uh-huh.
But to date, we have not chosen to do that. We've chosen to do that, so. So the antigen test, again, it's a nice tool to have to help us in the future, or if we have staff members specifically who are concerned about their health and they're showing symptoms. That's all related to COVID and contact tracing, all that. I want to shift gears just a little bit, talk a little bit about funding on the COVID side. To date, since May of 2020, when we received our first elementary and secondary relief fund money, we received $339,805 federal money, and that was all used to backfill salaries. During the time when school was not in session, we continued to pay staff, so we used those dollars to backfill those salaries, and that was all expended prior to June 30th, all right? Since that time, we've received another $301,354.56 from Howell County. That's through the Howell County Commission. We received another $18,000 from Texas County for our students who reside in Texas County but attend Willow Springs School District. And we received another CRF CARES Relief Fund package from DESE, amounted to $88,455. At that time, all those dollars were required to be spent by December 31st. Congress had a very difficult time getting together to reauthorize anything. And it wasn't until like mid to late December they went ahead and they passed the huge stimulus package and decided to go ahead and extend that date all the way to a year from now, to a year from December. Well, we've already expended the dollars, but if somehow we free up dollars, say for instance we don't need all the hot spots that I talked to Andrew about earlier, we could free up $20,000 or $30,000 and still don't have to have that spent till next year. So we still have some flexibility in it, but for all intents and purposes, that's $747,614.56 that's already been expended from CARES money. From federal. That's over and above anything we get from the state, okay? More good news. Just received word last week that the new stimulus package involves ESSER II monies, all right? And the state of Missouri will receive $871 million of new ESSER money, ESSER II money. These are new funds to be dispersed through DESE. They'll be dispersed sometime this spring by May of 2021. You have to have those dollars spent no later than September 2022. Trying to make allocation estimations. The best I can tell, based on the amount of ESSER dollars coming out, our allocation will be anywhere between 1.2 and 1.4 million of new ESSER money, all right? You add those two together, that's gonna be close to $3 million that we received in federal funding since this whole COVID thing started. The interesting thing about the new ESSER money is they've added 3 more allowances to it in addition to what the first ESSER money said. You can use it for facility upkeep and maintenance. You can use it for indoor air quality, or you can use it to determine individual learning losses for students, or group learning losses for students. One of the areas that is intriguing for us, if you recall, we go back to our LED or lighting audit a year or so back, and we were trying to leverage changing our LED lights. Maybe we saved enough money to be able to replace our 2-pipe boiler system at the middle school. When they did the numbers, it didn't work out. We just weren't, our utilization was so low anyway. They said, you're just not gonna make enough money, there's not enough bang for the buck. However, since this came out, I had a conversation with Ryan Evans with Integrity, and this absolutely would qualify to help us replace that 2-pipe boiler system at the middle school.
What was the price on that?
I had him estimated over the phone, just a very rough estimate, but probably about $500,000. And that would allow us to upgrade our entire HVAC system at the middle school. But you also have to have the reverse ionization piece in there for indoor air quality, because that's the whole purpose of it, is you want to keep your air clean, right? And so I think, I mean, I haven't actually received the allocation yet. I think when I receive it, I need to sit down with the board. And I mean, that's 18 months, all right, for $1.2 to $1.4 million that we need to put together a plan on how the board would like to see us expend those dollars. We got plenty of time. It's good news.
Leaky roofs cause mold, which
They do.
causes air quality issues.
They do, and so, I mean, they didn't specifically say roof, it did say maintenance upkeep, facility upkeep, so I'm still exploring alternatives for that, but it just amazes me that we will be receiving over a 12-month time span, almost $3 million. I mean, that's just, or $2 million, that's just crazy. But anyway, but it's good news. It will allow us to complete some things that are priorities for our school district that we didn't have the capital money to do at this time. So, you know, that's kind of where we are right now. From the state standpoint, the economy's turned around. The state's already made up all the revenue losses from the economy since March. So we're waiting on the governor to release more of the dollars that were withheld earlier this fiscal year. So that hasn't happened yet, but my understanding is that will happen very soon.
How much was withheld altogether, do you know?
Oh gosh, I would say $500,000 to $600,000.
And you think they're gonna go back and
Yeah, people I've talked to said,
distribute?
yeah, he will go back and reinstate those withholdings.
And those withholdings, we actually used this $339,805 to backfill.
Correct. And those withholdings actually didn't hit till till July.
And what fund will they go into?
They will go into Fund 1. Fund 1, because Fund 1 will be our operational, and then Fund 2 is our teacher's fund. We've got to transfer back and forth to cover our teacher salaries. The withholdings will come back in, they'll come into Fund 1. Either Fund 1 or Fund 2. They can't go into Fund 4. So it's going to be one of the others.
Nice.
All right, questions on that? Well, it's kind of good news. 8 months ago, I never saw this coming. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. So. Any questions on that? If not, I'm finished with that.
Somebody good there? Do I have any comments tonight from anyone?
I have one.
No, you don't qualify.
I'm a guest here. Something positive, and maybe it's been mentioned before and I missed it, but the Hicks House sign, I think it's a great idea. I think we knew the people that were there that owned that house, and the sign looks great. I think that was a great addition to our campus.
Yep.
Sure.
I've heard some positive feedback from the community on that too.
You can thank 2 of the folks that were instrumental in that, especially Chris, for sitting right behind you, so. And I gotta tell you too, I was contacted by a member of the Hicks family. They live up in Collie. I think they live in like,
Kansas.
Close to Olathe, yeah, kind of the other side of the world.
Huh.
And, but anyway, he was very complimentary. Somebody had sent him the pictures and he was extremely pleased, impressed, and proud. And so I just wanted to pass that on, so.
Cool.
Well, kudos to the whole deal.
Yeah.
Good job. Got an attaboy from Coach Colley. Anything else? I think this may be the first board meeting I've ever attended where I had no items for action.
Yeah.
and I've attended a bunch of them.
Would you like to do that more often?
I don't think it's an option. All right, I'd receive a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
By Farrell, and a second.
Yeah.
So was that Adam? I'll do that by roll call.
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
And aye. Very well. Executive session.
Okay. And we also have, we have two executive sessions. The first is a student issue. We have
Mhm.
Mr. and Mrs. Lee with
Oh.
Travis here this evening.
We need to go offline.
Yeah, we need to do that
We'll
first.
take a quick break.
Yeah, let's do that, short break. How long, 5 minutes?
Oh, Brent got a
Yep.